Hi everyone, this is a continuation lesson off of 92 and it is part 3, and we are talking about the perfect tense in this lesson. If you are not understanding the simple and the progressive, you're not going to understand the perfect. So it's really important that you go back and make sure if you're not understanding these two before you get here that you get that down. All right, so now perfect tenses, they are a little bit trickier than the progressive tense, because the progressive tense, you add the ing and you have to add an auxiliary verb. With the perfect tense, you have the ed plus the auxiliary verb, or we have irregular verbs or participles. Now, if they are an ed, most of the time, they're pretty easy. You can understanding the simple past and the past participle is pretty easy. The past participle is the perfect. And so if you're able to understand, it's going to be really easy to understand it if they are all just ed. But what gets tricky is when they go into the irregulars. Now we're mostly focusing on irregular verbs, so you can see exactly how to use them and how they're used and why they're used the way they are. If we talk about the simple tense right here, look at our base word so. That is sitting in the present, and we don't really use suffixes on it unless it is the suffix s, and that puts us in the singular or plural on your simple tense. But here we have the past tense, we have the ed, but look what happens in the past participle, which is the perfect tense. It changed to sown. So this is an irregular verb. I put everything in here, in this particular one, in the plural. It's in the plural, and so I wanted to show you the difference from the singular to the plural. The plural is easier because words don't need to be conjugated the same way. And remember, present tense is where that gets tricky. So if you look at this, we sew the skirts. Look, it's the simple tense. Simple tense, we sew the skirts. There's no auxiliary verb there. You sew the skirts. It's the same way, whether it's plural or singular. They sew the skirts. You don't have to worry about it when it is plural. You do have to worry about it when it's singular. Now in the progressive, we are using, see, this is the progressive present progressive, however you want to say it. You are using the verb are. Now are means it's plural, and this is plural meets plural, and you're adding to the ing to the simple tense word. So in the simple, we're using just our base word. In the progressive, we're using the simple tense and adding the ing and also adding the proper auxiliary verb. Since this is plural, you take the plural verb. We are sewing the skirts. Same with second person. It matters with your first, second, and third person to understand those. But see, look, it's not changing in first, second, or third person in the plural. You are sewing the skirts. They are sewing the skirts. They're the same. You don't have to change. But you do need to understand your first, second, and third person. Where it really changes is when you are in the singular. And that's when you need to pay attention to what happens. In the perfect present tense, this is what you use. We have sewn the skirts. You have sewn the skirts. They have sewn the skirts. Now let's go into the future. The future tense, remember in simple, you just use we will sew the skirts. You will sew the skirts. They will sew the skirts. Nothing changes. You use the exact same words, whether it's in first, second, or third person. In the progressive, when you are in the future tense, you use the words will be. We will be sewing the skirts. You will be sewing the skirts. They will be sewing the skirts. Plural, plural, plural. It's all the same. Plural is so much easier than it is to put it in singular. Now look at this. Perfect tense. Future perfect. Look at that. Perfect tense. You need to make sure that you're understanding we will have sown. And you're using the word have for the future. You will have sown, the perfect past participle. This, when you look in the dictionary and you see the past participle, they're talking about the perfect in the sown. You will have sown the skirts. They will have sown the skirts. So you need to make sure you're putting will have sown. Nothing changes right here. That's why people are like, why does it matter if I know this? Because other things change. And you need to understand how to use the proper auxiliary verb in these. Because it's going to be different if it's going to be singular. Plural is so much easier. Now, let's look at the simple. Now the simple, this is the simple past tense. And we sewed the skirts. Now look what happened. Simple past. And that's why the EDs are so much easier, because if you just have the ED and you're not talking about the irregulars, this is going to be your simple past is the ED without the auxiliary verb, but the past participle is the ED in the perfect, but with the auxiliary verb. But it's different when you're figuring out an irregular. Here, with the progressive, we were sewing. Look, past tense, this means you have to use the past tense verb. And this is plural, plural, plural. This is past, past tense. We were sewing the skirts. You were sewing the skirts. They were sewing the skirts. We're going to go into the perfect past tense. So that means we have to use the proper auxiliary verb. We had sewn. We had sewn the skirts. You had sewn the skirts. See, we're using the past. Since this is the perfect past, you have to use the proper auxiliary verb. They had sewn the skirts. We had sewn the skirts, the perfect past tense. You had sewn the skirts, the perfect past tense. You have to use the proper auxiliary verb. Since this sits in the past tense, you have to use the past tense verb of had in the perfect. See how here it's have when it's in the present. Here in the future it's will have. But here in the perfect past it's had sewn. They had sewn the skirts. Simple is sew. Progressive is your helping verb plus sewing. And perfect is your helping verb plus sewn. But then your simple past tense is sewed with the ED on that. All right, everybody, that's it. We'll see you in the next lesson.
Thanks for watching. Bye.